Thank you for joining us this week at Crosswind Church for part 2 of the series From Rows to Circles. This week we take a look at Jesus himself for inspiration and instruction on how to do small groups. Should you have any questions about this message or Crosswind Church, please don't hesitate to visit our website, www.crosswindchurch.net, or email us at info@crosswindchurch.net.
Amen. Well, if you have your Bibles, and I hope you do, go ahead and grab them. And we're going to be in Mark chapter 3. Give you a little bit of background on me, because we're in this series called From Rows to Circles, where we're talking about home groups. And I have been a follower of Jesus for about 32 years, which means that I'm getting old. And I've been doing this Jesus thing for a while. And I was blessed to grow up in church. And so before I even was a follower of Jesus, I was involved in Sunday school. I came from a tradition where we had Sunday school, and if you don't know that tradition, Sunday school at my church that I grew up in met about an hour before the service for about an hour. And in my case, what it involved is us as kids and teenagers sitting in a semicircle in a room, and a teacher sitting in front of us teaching us a lesson. That was kind of how that it worked. And as I got a little bit older, what I found is that middle school boys and high school boys, which once I became one, became a little bit unruly and a little bit more difficult for teachers to manage. And I realize now, looking back, that the poor teachers that had to sit in front of us were underprepared and very poorly trained to be able to handle middle school boys and high school boys. But nonetheless, that's what it was. So my Sunday school experience, especially in high school, was not a very good one because of basically who we were, I guess you could say. But it involved a teacher sitting in front of us, and he would get his lesson book, and he was so well-intentioned, and he loved us so much, but he essentially just read to us the lesson out of the book, and so it wasn't very much of a fun experience for me. And so when I went to college, I was not involved in any kind of small group Sunday school, anything at all. I went to the church at Brook Hills, which is where David Platt used to be. He wasn't there when I was there because I'm old, and I was long before David. But regardless of that, I was there, and they still did Sunday school for college students, but I didn't go, not very often. Every now and then I'd go, typically because there was a girl that I wanted to be. But regardless of that, I didn't really do that because I had such kind of a bad experience in high school. It wasn't really worthwhile. And let's be honest with you, as I told you last week, it actually has the name school in the name. Like, it's something school. And I was going to school all week, and there was nothing like that. It just didn't sound appealing to me at all to go sit in one more class, you know. And so I would go to church, and I would worship in a big group, but I never really got involved in any kind of small group. And as I told you last week, it wasn't until we moved to Fort Worth, Texas, and joined Wedgwood Baptist Church that really Jody and I began kind of involving ourselves in a group together, and that was really when I began to see kind of the benefit of it. But it was still what was called Sunday school. Sunday school, by the way, don't misunderstand me, is a phenomenal model. It works in so many churches, and when you do Sunday school correctly, it can be incredibly powerful. So don't think I'm dogging that at all. We were involved in Sunday school at Wedgwood, and we were enjoying it and loving it. And as I became on staff, I was the, let me see if I can get it right, I was the pastor to young adult singles. So we had, my boss was the associate pastor of Christian education. He was the ed guy, right, at the church. And big church we were there. And I can remember his name was Chris Shirley. He was one of my professors at the seminary as well. He came to us as an ed staff one day at Wedgwood, and he made this statement to us. He said, we're going to change the name of Sunday school. Now, before you guys kind of, you need to hear me out. I don't like change that much, which I know sounds kind of weird, like coming from me, because I'm like, change, let's do it. But listen, it's uncomfortable for me. Like, when I get to know something, this is what it's going to be, and you want to come in and change it like that. And so initially I was like, why do you want to change it? It's been working for like 200 years. And like, why don't we want to go and change the name of Sunday school? And he made some statements that changed the way I thought about groups. He said, well, the thing is that, first of all, it has the name school in it. So for some people, it's just not very appealing anyway, you know. And then we also had some groups that met on Saturday night. He said, so they're like going on Saturday night, but it's Sunday school. We don't want to call it Saturday school because that's something that kids go to when they get punished. And so that's just not a good thing at all. And so what we're going to do is we're going to call them Bible fellowships. That's what we changed the name to at Wedgwood. Bible fellowship. Because Sunday school, he said, only emphasizes one thing that we want to accomplish in these groups. Now, let me tell you why that was such a kind of a mind-altering moment for me. Up to that point, no one had ever said to me, we wanted to accomplish something in Sunday school, and we know what it is. No one had ever said that to me. I didn't know why we went. We just went because that's what you're supposed to do. But what are you supposed to do in here? What is the goal? What does success looks like? And up to that point, I just assumed it was just another class where we got a whole bunch of knowledge about Jesus. And what we wanted to try to do at Wedgwood was kind of alter that just a little bit. Yes, we want to teach the Bible. We want to give you more knowledge about Jesus. But also, that's the Bible part. But the fellowship part also needs to come. It's this idea of creating community in those groups as well, building relationships in those groups, doing things outside of the classroom on Sunday morning. And it was so paradigm shifting for me because now all of a sudden I started thinking, well, there's purpose behind it. There's a reason behind it. And let me tell you why that's so important to me. Because I grew up in church culture. And the church is really lousy about defining what success looks like. We just really are. Let me give you an example as to what I mean. I grew up playing baseball, right? That's the sport I grew up. Because I was too short to play basketball and too skinny to play football. That's just kind of the way that it worked, okay? It was the one sport that being short was an advantage because I could draw a walk and then steal second base. It was phenomenal. I had a great time doing it. Okay, so I played baseball. And the thing about baseball or basketball or football, any sport, is that when you walk off the field or you walk off the court, you can know whether or not you've been successful, right? How? You look at the scoreboard. In baseball, if you score more runs than the other team, you win. In football, if you score more points. In basketball, you score more points. You win. And it's very easy to recognize what success looks like. But in the church, we don't necessarily define success very well. So when I was a youth minister, this is what success looks like. I actually planned a trip, and we took, Hunter in here, you need to hear this. I took a trip to Louisville, Kentucky, to take my kids to Six Flags up there. Is there still Six Flags in Louisville? This was a long time ago. Anyway, went to the amusement park there in Louisville. It used to be Six Flags, and they not there. Anyway, so we go up there, and I load them all up in the van, and we carry them up there, and we have a great time at Six Flags. We get back in the van, and we drive all the way back to Pembroke, Kentucky, where I was a youth minister, and we get off the bus, and here's what the parents asked the kids when they got off the bus. Did you have fun? Did you get hurt? And so here's what I determined as a youth minister. So long as everybody has fun, we bring the same number of kids back that went, and no one gets hurt, we've been successful. Right? But come on, let's be honest. That's not a really good way to measure success in the church, right? Right? And so as I started thinking about groups, and we went from Wedgwood to Betteridge Community Baptist Church as a kind of a church revitalization project from Wedgwood, and we went out there, and they had what were called life groups that met on Sunday morning and during the week. We kind of began asking the question, what does success look like? Well, what do we want from these groups? How can we clarify what a win looks like for all of these groups that meet? We began researching. We pulled out books, and we read book after book after book after book. We went to seminars, we went to conferences, and we went and we watched videos, and we went to other churches actually and interviewed their ed guys and tell me. And here's what I discovered. Everybody has a reason why you should do a group, and everybody has a model for doing groups. They're all just a little bit different. They're all just a little bit different. And we could go and we could pull a model from North Point Church or from Willow Creek or from Saddleback, or we could pull a model from Pantego Bible Church in Arlington, Texas, and we could slam dunk it down on our church. But ultimately, I think that's probably a mistake. We have to contextualize what a group looks like, why we do groups, and how we do them so that we know we're being successful in doing groups or not. And so what I want to do for the next 2 weeks is I don't want to tell you what the books say, and I don't want to tell you what the experts say, and I don't want to tell you what other churches are going to do. What I want to do for the next 2 weeks is something that I'm kind of excited about. I want to tell you what the Bible says about small groups. I want to tell you what the Bible says about why small groups are important. I want to tell you what the Bible says about how people did small groups in the Bible, because you know what? They did small groups in the Bible. We're going to tell you about it today. And the reason that I'm excited about it is this, is because I once sat where you sit. I was once a skeptic of groups. I once said, I don't need them. I don't understand why we do them. It's just something made up by men. But ultimately, what we're going to do in the next 2 weeks is tell you this is not a man-made convention or program. It's something that comes straight from the Bible itself. And what better place for us to start today than Jesus himself as he interacted with other people in the first century. So let's go back to Mark chapter 3. And I want to read for you, beginning in verse 7. Before I start reading, I need to give you a little bit of background. Jesus is early on in his ministry. He's just getting started. And he's developed a little bit of a following. We'll see that in just a little bit. We'll read about that in just a minute. But in the early part of his ministry, he begins kind of challenging some of the beliefs of the Jews. In fact, the first part of chapter 3, he heals a man with a withered hand on the Sabbath day. And we end verse 6 with the Pharisees and the Herodians joining together to discuss how they're going to kill Jesus, all right? So he's early in his ministry. People already want him dead, all right? Which, by the way, is not a measure of success in today's society. Like, if people want you dead, typically you're not doing something right, okay? But Jesus is doing something right here, and so they want him dead. And people, in fact, that don't normally get along, the Pharisees and the Herodians, are working together now, right? Because they have a common enemy to try to kill Jesus. And that's where we find ourselves in verse 7. Let me read a little section to you, and then we'll talk a little bit. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the sea, and a great crowd followed from Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea, and from beyond the Jordan and from around Tyre and Sidon. And when the great crowd heard all that he was doing, they came to him. And he told his disciples to have a boat ready for him because of the crowd, lest they crush him. For he had healed many, so that all who had diseases pressed around him to touch him. And whenever the unclean spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." And he strictly ordered them not to make him known. Real quick, those last two verses. The reason that he doesn't want them to make him known is because the demons are not supposed to be a witness for Christ. In fact, their goal is not to point other people to him. Look, here's the Son of God, right? Here's Jesus. In fact, if a demon would say, hey, this is somebody that's from God, ultimately it could discredit Christ. You see what he's getting at? So that's why he's asking them to be silent. One of the two reasons he's asking them to be silent. I just want to point that out real quick. So Jesus is a rock star. Right? He's an absolute rock star. People are coming from all over the place to see Jesus. Now, I want to try to wrap our head around just exactly how many people were showing up. Have you ever been at like a concert or a sporting event? Have you ever been at maybe a conference or something like that where the crowd was so thick and the crowd was so impressive that you didn't walk, the crowd moved you? You with me? You know what I'm talking about? Where you didn't have a say necessarily where you went, but it was shoulder to shoulder, and you just kind of were just moving wherever the crowd told you to go, right? That's kind of what I experienced, or what I think Jesus is experiencing here. People are coming from all over. The crowd is so great that he asks his followers to have a boat ready in case he needs to escape. This is like Beatles-sized stuff, right? Like he's going, look, they may crush me. They may come in and everybody crowd around and it may be bad news. And so we may need to step into a boat and push back to shore a little bit just to put some distance between us and the enormous crowd that's there. Now, watch what happens next. It says the reason they're coming to him. And I want to point this out because Mark uses some very specific wording here. It says that when they heard all that he was, what's the word? When they heard all that he was doing, right? That's when they came to him. Now I want to make sure you get this. They didn't hear what he was teaching. They heard about what he was doing, okay? So let's see if we can kind of put that into some context. What that means is they heard that he was a healer. They had seen that he was a healer, and they wanted to come see the show, and they wanted to come get healed. Let's put it this way. Let me see if we can explain this. All right. You guys just got a new pastor, right? And inevitably, it could be our church. Second Baptist gets a new pastor as well. And so Justin shows up at Second Baptist, and Jeremy shows up here, and everybody goes, oh, you got to come hear our new pastor. You got to come hear our new pastor like he's whatever, so whatever. He comes here as a new pastor, but imagine that. So there's some buzz in the community. People kind of stop in. Oh, here's the new guy. Got to check him out, right? And then imagine this. Imagine your new pastor is not just like a decent guy. Imagine your new pastor is healing people. Now think about this. Not like just healing people like in a crazy kind of way, like, oh, he healed somebody I've never met before, right? That's like from Paducah or something like that. No. I had a friend that was sick. And that friend went and saw Jesus, and he came back. He wasn't sick anymore. I had a friend that couldn't walk. Like, I knew the guy. I talked to him. He went and saw Jesus. He didn't know what happened. And he came back, and he's walking again. There's a guy I knew that was blind. I knew he was blind. He told me he was blind. Everybody knew he was blind. Jesus spit in some blood, put it on his eyes. He was all gross and everything like that. But he saw again, right? Now, let me tell you what that would do. That would draw a crowd. And Jesus is drawing a crowd. But they're not coming, watch, because of what he's saying. They're coming because of what he's doing. There's a very interesting principle in here. Do you understand that one of the most inefficient ways to share truth or to disseminate truth is in a large group. It's very difficult to teach in a large group. Now listen, watch. I can get up here and I can preach and I can teach and we can talk about the Word of God in here, but ultimately, with 200 people in this room, you don't get a chance necessarily to raise your hand and go, well, I have a question. Hey, wait, you said something that sparked a thought in my mind. And can we go back just a little bit? That's not the context, not the setting that this is. And what's funny is teachers have understood this forever. Students have understood this forever. You went to a college, likely, because you wanted to go somewhere where there was a smaller classroom size. You could have more time with the teacher because ultimately you know that it's easier to teach smaller groups than it is bigger groups. I was talking to my wife, who's a school teacher, last night about this, and she said, listen, I don't know that it's easier to teach a smaller group than a big group, but I'll tell you this, there's less chance that someone falls through the cracks. There's less chance that a student gets lost along the way, and there's a higher chance that they all get it because we have more one-on-one interaction. The school systems have gotten this for forever, and if we're real honest with ourselves, the church knows this, don't we? I mean, come on. Let's say you have a question about something that I say. Maybe you write it down, maybe you don't, but by the time you get to Los Portales this afternoon, you've forgotten it. And if you email me or call me, man, that's awesome, but those are rare occurrences, right? You're going to walk out of here and you, by Tuesday, you're going to have forgotten most of what I said. Surely maybe there was one person or two people or a handful of people, half a dozen people, that something that was said today really struck a chord with them and it changed the way that they think. I get that. But it's just been my experience. It's just been my experience that the large group is a bad place to disseminate a lot of truth. Now, I want you to understand this. Jesus didn't stop doing the large group. I'm not saying we should disband and only do smaller groups. Jesus still preached to thousands of people. Jesus still healed the crowds and brought many into him. Look, because Jesus understands what we as the church know. And that is that the first interaction that people have to Jesus and to the church is largely a large group setting. And it's in that setting that maybe something that's said or something that's done will spark an interest in them that will be fanned to the flame of a relationship with Jesus Christ. You tracking with me? And so Jesus did big groups, but ultimately the large group was inefficient because they only came for what he was doing, not what he was saying. So look what Jesus does. This is so cool. Some of y'all aren't going to like this because I didn't the first time I read it either. Verse 13. And he went up on the mountain, and he called to him whom he desired, and they came to him. And he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him and might send them out to preach and have authority to cast out demons. Now, real quick, I need to give you just a little bit of information. The little word disciple in the Greek is used a number of different ways in the New Testament. And when you read the Bible, you need to be careful and always look as to what the word disciple is referring to. Ultimately, it just means follower, pupil, listener, observer. That's kind of the word that's used here in the Greek. And what we see is that this word can be used of a large group of people, right? The large group was following Jesus, and so he referred to them as his disciples. Sometimes that word refers to only a group of about 120 people, like in Acts chapter 2 when the disciples gathered together in the upper room. That was not just the 12, that was a big group of people. And then sometimes the word disciples can reference to the 12 apostles. And so earlier in the text we read disciples. That was a large group of people. That wasn't necessarily 12 because he hadn't chosen the 12 yet. And here he's going to choose the 12, who he's also going to call apostle, which is just a word for meaning ones who are sent. All right, now, watch this. Look what it says, and I want you to put back up there, Jessica, if you don't mind. Put up verse 13 again, because there's something in here that's really important. Jesus has a large group that's around him, right? Crowds pressing in on him, and look what he does. He went up on the mountain, and he called to him those whom he what? Let me put that in the Jeremy International Version. He chose. He picked. And you want to know what that implies? There were some that were not picked. That's hard, isn't it? Think about this for a minute. Lazarus was one of Jesus' best friends. Jesus was so upset when Lazarus died that the Bible tells us he wept. He cried and cried and cried because his friend died. Lazarus might have been there that day, but Lazarus wasn't picked. It's one of the 12. Right? That means Jesus looked at groups of people and he went, I want you, but not you. You all know way, right? But you, yeah, I want you, right? And he picked and he chose these 12. And if you're like me, the first time I read this, I was like, well, that ain't fair. There should have been a vote, right? There should be like an application process and an interview process that people had to go through so that everybody had an equal chance at getting in this. That's not fair. I want to introduce you to a little saying that I've taught my children that they absolutely love, and I'm going to have you repeat it after me, okay? I'll do it like wedding vows, so you can repeat after me, and I'll just do a little story. You ready for this? Fair ended in the Garden of Eden. There you go. Right? Fair ended in the Garden of Eden. Let me tell you something. Jesus picked people to be a part of his inner circle, and that means he didn't pick other people. Now, let me explain kind of where this goes. That means that there's going to be times in groups where a new group gets started, and you don't get picked to go be a part of that. There are going to be times where your best friend moves to go to another group, and you don't go be a part of that group. That doesn't mean you can't hang out with them on Friday. It doesn't mean you can't call them on Saturday and watch football with them. That's not what that's saying. It's just saying that not everybody can be in every group. Let me tell you, at Crosswind, we want every one of you in a group, but we have to realize we can't have everyone in every group. We can't. And sometimes that process hurts, and sometimes that process is not fair. But fair ended. Where, Emma Powell? In the Garden of Eden. That's exactly right. Right? Teach that to your kids. Next time they go, that's not fair. Fair ended in the Garden of Eden. Okay, anyway. So regardless of that. Now, so Jesus picked 12 individuals that were going to come to him and be a part of this. This was a problem that we had when I started groups at First Baptist Church of Hayden. Hayden was at in a Sunday school model, and we had some issues, and we wanted to try to make a place for people that were serving on Sunday to go. They needed to be able to be a part of a small group, and Sunday schools were working in some instances and not in others, and so we decided we were going to start what we call a community group ministry. But you can call it whatever you want: home group, community group, life group, group groups, whatever it is. They're all the same. And so we had community groups that began to meet, and as Joey and I began praying through how to start a community group ministry at First Baptist Hayden, one of the things we realized is that it would be unfair for me to take somebody out of a Sunday school model, put them in a new model, and tell them to lead that group. They don't know how. They've never been a part of one. So we very intentionally began praying about and thinking about who would be good group leaders. And we came up with 3 couples, and we went to each one individually. And we said, we want you to be a part of our group. And it's going to start, this is how the ministry is going to go, and we're going to be together for 12 months. And at the end of 12 months, you all are going to go lead your own groups because you'll have seen the way a group is to be led. So they did. They were a part of that. And that's how we birthed that ministry. And it took maybe about 6 months before rumbling started in the church. Well, you ever just pick people to be a part of his group? I didn't ask to be a part of his group. He must not like me. And I just don't know how in the world he would do that. And I want to be a part of a group. How come I need to sign up? How do I get to be a part of a group? And so I would go to him and I'd be like, whoa, wait, listen, groups are coming. But I couldn't put everybody in my group. You know that this decision made by Jesus when he picked these 12, it was not just a willy-nilly decision. The Gospel of Luke, when it tells the same story, it says that Jesus went up on a mountain and prayed all night long before he picked these 12 people. And when we pick our groups, and when you go and choose a group, I want you to go and pray about it in earnest. And it may mean that someone has to be excluded, and it may mean that you have to be excluded. Everyone in a group, but not everyone in every group. Track it with me? All right, now, look what happens next, because it tells us Jesus picks these 12, and then it tells us why. This is so cool. It says that he picked them, and they came to him, and he appointed 12, and also called apostles, this is verse 14, so that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach and have authority to cast out demons. So there's 2 things here that of why Jesus picked this small group. The first is so that they might be with him. Now, let's stop right there, and let's talk about why that's so incredibly important. See, I came and I moved to Union City. In fact, I can remember talking with the search team. There's so many guys that like hunted and did manly things on the search team, you know, and I'm not like a manly dude. And so they were talking about, man, you come up here, we'll take you hunting, and we'll do all that kind of stuff. Now, I grew up kind of around guns, and I knew how to operate guns, but I had like been squirrel hunting when I was in middle school a couple times, and that's it. That's all my experience in hunting, and I like wore blue jeans and like an Auburn shirt. And that was it, you know. I was just So I didn't know it. So I can remember the night that y'all voted on me. It was I don't remember what, Friday night. We were here. And it had been raining that night, and we were standing out in front as we were leaving. Bobby Joe Hill was out there, and we were talking, and I said, well, I got all these guys. I'm excited. People have said they're going to take me hunting. And I said, but I don't own any camo. I didn't have any camo at all. None. And I was like, so I guess I'm going to have to buy camo. And Bobby Joe was like, between me and Kelly Powers, we got you hooked up. And I was like, well, good. You know, that's awesome. And so I moved here, and they start talking about it immediately. Oh, man, deer season. Duck season right around the corner, get you ready. And so I had a couple routes that I could play, a couple routes I could go. I could either just kind of pretend like I knew what I was doing, or I could just kind of be honest and be like, hey guys, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. And Matt Riley and Tommy Gurley, Kelly Powers, Dylan, these guys were like so good to me and so nice to me, because I can't tell you how many times I looked at them and was like, listen, just don't let me embarrass myself. Right? Like, I'm not going to shoot anybody, I think, but like, you know, if you'll just let me know when I do something wrong, you know, because I literally have no idea. Now, let me tell you what they could have done. Let me tell you what these men could have done. They could have said, yeah, you know what, Jeremy, I know you don't really know anything about hunting deer, hunting ducks, or anything like that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have a class for you. And we're going to come, and I'm going to teach the class. You come, you'll sit in the little desk or whatever, and for about 3 hours one Saturday, I'll just download everything I know about hunting deer, download everything I know about hunting ducks, and I'll give you some books to read. And before I take you out into the field, I'm going to make sure that you have kind of a baseline knowledge. And as a nerd, like I'm a nerd, total nerd, I would love that, right? Right? But let me tell you what they did instead. They went, oh, listen, man, it's no problem. It's no problem. We'll hook you up with some camo. We'll get you going, and we'll let you borrow a gun or whatever, and we'll go. And listen, and the way you're going to learn is you're going to go and you're going to watch. Be with me. Just watch what we do. Do what we do, right? Just go out into the woods, into us, and when we tell you to shoot something, shoot it, right? That's it. That's it. That's all we should do. And you'll learn faster, and you'll learn better when you get to watch us do what we do. Now think about what Jesus does here. When he calls the 12 disciples to him, he calls them together so that they can be with him. Now, did Jesus teach them? Absolutely. Did Jesus share with them the secrets of the kingdom? Absolutely. Were there times when they sat down in a circle and Jesus said, look, let me read this little bit of Old Testament to you. Sure, there were times where Jesus did that, but what they observed in Jesus was him living out the gospel. What they learned by watching Jesus was they saw him live out the things that he practiced. They saw him love his enemies and pray for those who persecute him. They saw him turn the other cheek. They saw him have compassion, show love. They saw him stand up for what was right. And that's a better classroom than anything that we could ever provide. Listen, one of the reasons we get in groups is this. The closest thing you can get to be with Jesus, to being with Jesus physically today, is being with a group of Jesus followers. And yeah, we can sit you in a classroom and we can fill you with more knowledge about Jesus. Or I can put you around other believers where you can continue then to grow and work and question and ask and study together what it is that Jesus has asked us to do. You tracking with me? They're both good ways to teach. They're just different ways to teach. Jesus says, I want you to be with me so that you can see the way that I live, and I'm going to give you authority to do what I do. I'm going to send you out so you can preach, so that you can cast out demons, so that you can heal the sick, so that you can do what I do. And ultimately, we want everyone to be a part of a group so that they can grow, and that group can multiply and go do it again. And that group can multiply and go do it again. And that group can grow and multiply and go do it again. Jesus had a group so they could be with him, and so that he could then instill in them the values and the lessons that give them authority to go do what it is that he does. Called who he would. He chose so they could be with him and he could give them authority to do what it is that he did. Now, Mark does something really interesting that I just got to be honest with you, for the longest time I didn't understand necessarily why. He gives us a list of the names of the 12. And with the reason that I didn't understand it, I still kind of struggle with it a little bit. The reason that I struggle with this is that, like, a good number of these are not mentioned any other place in the New Testament other than these lists. Right? We know about Peter, and James, and John, and Matthew. We know his story, right? We know about Judas Iscariot. We know about Thomas, doubting Thomas, and all that, right? But like Simon the Zealot, don't know anything about Simon, right? We don't know anything about this guy. Why would he list him? And then when you start looking at the names of the individuals, a possible reason comes out. Let me read these to you real quick. We're in verse 16, if I'm not mistaken. He appointed the 12, Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James, to whom he gave the name Boanerges, that is, sons of thunder. By the way, that's one of the questions I want to ask when I get to heaven. What did they do to get the nickname sons of thunder? I bet they were maybe hot-headed. I don't know. We'll see. Sons of thunder. Verse 18, Andrew and Philip and Bartholomew and Matthew and Thomas and James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus and Simon the Zealot and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. Now let me just go ahead and tell you this. This is such a diverse group of individuals. They come from wealthy sectors. They come from poor sectors. In fact, let me just point out one to you real quick. Simon the Zealot, we don't know anything about him other than the fact that he was a zealot, a little word that could mean enthusiast, right? Ultimately, he was a part of a group of Jewish zealots, if you will, that were responsible for wanting to overthrow in a military fashion or overthrow in a violent fashion the Roman government that was there in Jerusalem. So let me see if I can describe to you Simon the Zealot today. Simon the Zealot is the guy that is storing up ammunition in his basement, waiting for the opportunity to strike to overthrow the government. You tracking with me? That's who Simon is. He wants the government gone, and we're going to be violent and do whatever we have to do to get the Roman government out of the land that God has promised our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. On the other hand, you have a man by the name of Matthew, who also is known as Levi, who was a tax collector, i.e., an employee of the Roman government. Up to this point, they would have never been in the same room as one another. Right? They couldn't stand each other. One wanted one completely overthrown. The other was making money hand over fist. Right? We had poor fishermen. We had rich tax collectors. We had all this in the same group. And there's something that I think is so important that we can get from this list of 12 names. There is strength in diversity in your groups. There's strength in diversity in your groups. And let me explain what that means. You're going to be challenged more when you surround yourself with people that don't believe exactly the way you believe. You're challenged more when you're faced with people that are not necessarily in the same life situation as you, but maybe are a little farther down the road. You tracking with me? This is so incredibly neat. I'll tell you where this kind of hit home for me. My second semester of seminary, Jay and I were living in a little apartment. It was she and I, a little dog, and one day we were getting ready to go out to dinner, and I got a knock at the door, and I opened the door, and there were 2 Mormon missionaries at the front door. And that's like saying sick of me. I'm a hound dog. Like, I was a new seminary student, and I was like, man, I want to meet with these guys, but I'm going to dinner. And so I said, here's my number. I gave them a number. Call me. I want to talk with you. And so they set it up for about a week later, and I just spent that entire week. I went to talk to professors. I read books. I watched documentaries. Like, I learned everything that I could about their faith and about my faith and what arguments they're going to bring and what arguments can I bring. It was great. And they came to my living room. They sat down, and we talked for 3 hours. I don't know where Jody was. She missed that meeting somewhere. Gone, I don't know. Anyway, they came and we sat and we talked for 3 hours. And I left that meeting, so interested, because I didn't convert them and they didn't convert me, but ultimately they challenged me to go dig deeper in my Word of God so that I knew exactly what I believed and could defend it. And I think there's a great challenge in that. There's great strength in diversity in your groups. Jesus picks a group that's not all the same. He's related to some of them. He's not related to others. Right? He picks a group that's diverse, and ultimately there's strength in diversity. One last thing I want to point out about this group that he picked and put together. Very last verse. Very last person. And Judas Iscariot, who would betray him. Now that's a danger about groups, isn't it? It's a danger about getting real with people, isn't it? It's a danger about bringing those walls down and talking to people and sharing, isn't it? They might hurt me. They might betray me. They might gossip about me. They might think I'm weird. They might judge me. You fill in the blank. They might whatever, right? Can I tell you something? They might. Jesus picked Judas Iscariot, the one that would betray him, after praying all night long. He knew that Judas would betray him. And he picked him anyway. See, this is a struggle for me because I'm not a very trusting person. It's a big character flaw that I have. I don't like it. I don't. God's dealing with me on it. We're working through it. But I'm so afraid that if I really trust somebody and open up and let them know my struggles and my hurts and my desires, that they'll just hurt me again. Can I tell you something? They might. They hurt Jesus. Might hurt me too. But you want to know the truth? Real Christian community, real authentic believers gathering together to sharpen each other and to help each other along in their journey to become more like Christ, it's worth the risk. Just is. It's worth the risk. And along the way, you'll come across some nincompoops that'll make you feel like just, horrible. And you'll run across some people that will abuse that relationship and that will abandon you and leave you. Can I tell you something? It's worth the risk. But Jeremy, I've been hurt before. Do it again. But Jeremy, you don't know my story. You're right, I don't know your story, but I know Jesus' story. And I knew that someone betrayed him and sent him off to death. Yet Jesus put him in his group. He put him in the inner circle. Listen, being a part of a group is a struggle sometimes. Being a part of a group is a risk. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's not. But I can tell you, it's worth the risk. Jesus then selects a group out of the masses because the masses was not the best way. Not the best way to teach people what he wanted to teach them and empower them to do the work that he wanted to do. And so he chose 12. He brought them close. He made them part of the inner circle. He did it so they could be with him, observe him, see him, and not just hear him, and not just see the things he did, but actually walk and do life with him. He chose 12 people who were radically diverse from one another, and he even picked one that would betray. I know it's hard, but I wonder, would you let 2015 be the year that you take the risk and step into home groups? Would you let 2015 be the year where you go, you know what, the big group is great, and I learn a lot in the big group, but ultimately I want to sit across from another believer that may be struggling the way that I'm struggling, or maybe has already dealt with something like I'm dealing with right now. I want to sit across from another believer where I go, hey, I have a question about something. Can we dive into the Word together and try to figure that out? I want to sit across from another believer that knows me and knows my story well enough to look me in the eye and go, hey, I'm praying for you because there's something not right. Will 2015 be that year for you? And we've made it as easy as possible on you. In fact, there's 2 ways that you can get involved in home groups, and I want to go ahead and tell them to you again. First of all, if you're like an extrovert, you like to go call people and meet people for the first time, and that kind of thing doesn't bother you, out in our foyer, there's a little piece of paper, and up at the top it says home groups, and I think there's 9 home groups that are meeting right now all over the microplex of Union City, right? And so you can go and grab that. It has phone numbers and names and addresses, all that. You can grab that and call them and, hey, make sure you're meeting this week and where you're meeting and all that. And I'm coming and do I need to bring brownies or whatever. And you can go and just participate in the group for the first time. But if you're a little more skittish about that, if that kind of makes you uncomfortable, if you'd like someone to call you, then also out in the foyer, there's a sign-up sheet. Just put down your name, your phone number, and your email is always asked for, and all that information gets distributed to every community group leader, and hopefully one of them will call you. Right? I'll tell you this, if you're a guy, at least one will call you. If you're a girl, at least one will call you. Because everybody needs to be in a group, although not everybody can be. Every group. Would you allow 2015 to be the year that you start to pull down those walls? Start to become more like Jesus by engaging.